Here we have a change of base formula. You might be able to go into your calculator if you have a TI 84 plus or beyond, or even a TI 83 plus. Some of them have math, and if you scroll down, you can switch your log base. And other calculators do not have this option. If you have this option, I would type in log base 6 of 36. If you cannot change the base of your log, what you can do is do ln of the number divided by ln of the base, and you'll get the same answer that you would with log of the number divided by log of your base. Either way, base goes on bottom. So just in case you don't have that option under math and scrolling down to possibly like letter A, if you do not have that option, what you can do is use the ln or log button as long as you put the base on bottom. Let's look at a problem where we could apply this. We have the town manager of Mathville reports revenue in 2014 as $3.2 million. And then in 2015, the revenue is $3.7 million. So this we want to write an exponential function for, and it looks like we have exponential growth because the amount of money is getting bigger. So our value for A and the y equals c times a to the x is going to be bigger than 1 since we're looking at some growth here. We want to figure out what the exponential function is. So we're trying to find y equals c times a to the x. We have 3 steps to do this. The first step is to find c. And so c is whatever the y value is with year 0. Since we're trying to model revenue since 2014, 2014 is going to be our time 0, the initial place where we're starting to look at revenue. So looking at these 2 points we're given, we have 2014 is 3.2 million, and then 1 year later in 2015, we're at 3.7 million. So we can write these as points. We have the point 0, comma 3.2, and then the point 1, comma 3.7. So C, the initial y value, must be 3.2, which stands for 3.2 million. We're not going to write out all the zeros since they didn't write out all the zeros in the problem for us. So we're just going to leave it as 3.2. Our second step is going to be to plug into y equals c times a to the x and to find a. So I'm going to use the x and the y value that I'm given from the other point. So y is going to be 3.7. I'm going to have c from above was 3.2 times a to the x value of the point is 1. Well, anything to the first power is just itself. Anything to the 0 is 1, but anything to the first power is itself. So we're just going to have a there, right? If you plug in on your calculator, 500 to the 1 is 500, 6 to the first is just 6, so a to the first is just going to be a. But we want to solve for a, and right now it's multiplied by 3.2, so we're going to divide both sides by 3.2 to get a by itself, and it says round your base to the nearest hundredths. So I'm going to round to the second decimal place and plug into my calculator what is 3.7 divided by 3.2, and that is giving me to the second decimal place 1.16. And so my last step is to write my y equals c times a to the x, but here they tell us to call it r of t. So instead of writing it as y equals, I'm going to write r of t equals c, which is 3.2. And we're going to multiply that by this a we just found, 1.16. And instead of to the x, we're going to write it to the t, since that's our variable here. So there's the function we're going to use in the next couple steps. The next part says, if the trend continues, what will the revenue be in 2020? Well, how many years after 2014 is 2020? We're looking at 6 years later. So we know 1 year later, the revenue grew to be $3.7 million. Well, what's happening 6 years later? We're going to figure that out by plugging in r of 6. I'm going to do 3.2 parentheses. I'll have 1.16. And I'm going to use the caret button, which is above the divide symbol on the calculator. We're looking to raise it to the 6th power, which is going to be round to 2 decimal places. So I'm going to round this 7.796. The 6 after the 9 means I'm going to round it up to be 7.80. We're talking about money for revenue, but it's just not $7.80. It's $7.8 million. So a huge revenue in 2020, $7.8 million, whereas we started at $3.2 million in 2014. So they're definitely doing well. But at some point they said, according to RFT, which year will the revenue be 6.2 million? So they had an initial goal of $6.2 million. When did they hit that goal? Well, they started out at $3.2 million in 2014. By 2020, they're at $7.8 million. So sometime between 2014 and 2020, they must have hit that $6.2 million goal. So let's figure out when that was. So I'm going to replace R of T, that revenue, with a 6.2 and figure out what T value would give us that. So we're trying to figure out the T, to figure out which year. So I'm going to say 6.2 equals 3.2 times 1.16 raised to the T. I want to get the T by itself. So first thing I want to do is divide by 3.2 to get that exponential on one side by itself. So 6.2 divided by 3.2 is 1.9375 equals, and I'm going to leave some space here, it's 1.16 raised to the T. I'm going to leave some space because I'm trying to solve for T and it's stuck up in the exponent. So I'm trying to solve an exponential. To get T out of the exponent, I need to use a log. So log base 1.16 is going to cancel out with 1.16, and then we're going to be able to bring T down. But if I want to do that to the right side, I also have to do it to the left. So I'm going to take log base 1.16 of 1.9375, and that will get T by itself. If I have that math button in my calculator where I can change the log base, I'm going to scroll down and plug it in just like that. If not, I'm going to use the change of base formula from above, which just says we can use either the ln or the log button. So I could do ln of the number divided by ln of the base goes on bottom. It doesn't matter how you enter it in. If you have the button on your calculator, I would plug it in like this. If you can't change it using the math button, I would plug it in like this. Either way, you get the same answer, that T equals, to the third decimal place, it's about 4.456, which doesn't answer the question. It says which year is that? Well, it's 4.5 years just about after 2014, my time 0. So we're looking at in 2018 is when they hit that goal of $6.2 million, which makes sense because by 2020, they were at $7.8 million. So 2018, they hit the $6.2 million revenue.